I hope you can survive our one-day winter down here in Florida. And I want to thank Kevin for his meditation earlier, because it's really a prelude right into the message I have for you today. My name is Tim. I'm one of the elders here at the church. And I'd like to talk on this particular philosophy, that even the smallest deed done is greater than the biggest good intention. So don't let your ears get tongue-tied. I'll say it again for you, okay? Even the smallest deed done is greater than the biggest good intention. Well, it's been 1 week since you made your New Year's resolutions. So you know I have to ask, how's that going for you? Well, if you made a resolution, then likely you selected one or more of the following top 10 New Year's resolutions. Resolution number 1, spend more time with family. And that's a very, very important one, top of the list of the top 10. Number 2, fitness and health. Well, we do need to be more active. Number 3, lose weight. We know that being overweight is a big cause of a variety of health issues. Number 4, quit smoking, and therefore reduce the risk of lung cancer. Number 5, enjoy more of life. Enjoy more of God's creation. Number 6, quit drinking, therefore reducing the risk of a variety of health issues. Number 7, get out of debt. Well, obviously, so you can enjoy more of life. Number 8, learn something new. Read and study the Bible every day. There's a lot of stuff in there that'll be new to you, right? Number 9, help others. Think more of others and less of yourself. And number 10, get organized. Have a plan and work towards it. Are any of these resolutions on your list, perhaps? Well, did you know that studies show that the average lifespan of a New Year's resolution is about 6 weeks? So good luck. Did you also know that the same studies show that the biggest reason why New Year's resolutions crash, burn, and die before they even get off the ground is due to setting unrealistic goals in the attempt to reach those new resolutions? For examples, if our resolution is fitness and health, why do we decide to start exercising 7 days a week? Or if our resolution is to start running, why do we decide to run 5 miles the very first day? Or if our resolution is to lose the battle of the bulge, why do we decide on a crash diet of 500 calories a day? You see, it's the setting of unrealistic goals that is often the cause of even good resolutions to fail before they barely get a chance to begin. But I'm not interested in making a New Year's resolution. But I do want to encourage you to do something different and far better. And it's based on this philosophy that even the smallest good deed actually done is greater than the biggest good intention we might ever come up with. I'd like for us to look at a few Bible stories and see if it isn't true that even little deeds, when done in the name of Christ, far surpass the gigantic things that we intend to do, but just never get around to doing. Our first story is found in Matthew chapter 14, verses 13 through 21. And we read these words. Jesus withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place. Hearing of this, the crowds followed him on foot from the towns. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them and healed their sick. As evening approached, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a remote place, and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food." Jesus replied, "They don't need to go away. You give them something to eat." "We have here only 5 loaves of bread and 2 small fish," they answered. "Bring them here to me," he said. And he directed the people to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. Then he gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the people. They all ate and were satisfied. And the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. The number of those who ate was about 5,000 men, besides women and children. This is a very familiar story to us. Indeed, it is the only miracle of Christ that's recorded in all 4 gospel accounts. We most often remember this miracle as the miracle in which Christ miraculously fed a great multitude of people. In fact, Matthew tells us in his gospel record that the 5,000 who were fed was the head count of only the men, besides women and children. Did you know that scholars estimate that this multitude could have easily numbered over 20,000 men, women, and children when they were all totaled together? You know, when we look at this miracle, what catches our eye is the size of the crowd. What gets our attention is how big this miracle of Christ really was. We can easily overlook the fact that this miracle, as performed by Christ and as retold in all 4 gospel accounts, is really the story of a boy who gave his lunch to Jesus. A lunch that consisted of, as John records this account in chapter 6 of John, verse 9, 5 small barley loaves, emphasis on the word small, and 2 small fish, emphasis again on the word small. What a tremendously small amount of food indeed, from which to feed a large multitude that may have numbered upward to 20,000 people or more. So what's the moral of this story? Simply this: even the smallest thing actually done in the name of Christ can result in a big blessing for other people. You see, I'm not asking what really big, good intention can you come up with. I am asking, what small thing will you do in the name of Christ that may result in a big blessing in the life of someone else? Second story is also found in Matthew. It's found in Matthew chapter 10, verses 40 through 42, where we read these words. He who receives you receives me, and he who receives me receives the one who sent me. Anyone who receives a prophet because he is a prophet will receive a prophet's reward. And anyone who receives a righteous man because he is a righteous man will receive a righteous man's reward. And if anyone gives even a cup of cold water to one of these little ones because he is my disciple, I tell you the truth, he will certainly not lose his reward. It is believed that these little ones that Christ is talking about are children, perhaps even young children. And if so, how small or seemingly more insignificant could a deed be than to give a cup of cold water to a child? I'd say our choice would have been, I want to receive the reward of a prophet. Whatever that reward would have been, we would have wanted it because we probably would have thought that a prophet's reward would have been the biggest and the best to have. And the same with the reward of a righteous man. That surely the reward of a righteous man would still be bigger than any reward that could possibly come from giving a cup of cold water to a child. Would we have even considered the fact that showing such a small, seemingly insignificant act of giving a cup of cold water to a child might have changed that child's life? His name was Keith, Christian man, married to a lovely Christian wife with their 2 teenage children. He wasn't very active in the church when I first began my ministry there, but he started to come. And after a period of time and a good deal of personal growth, he became actively involved in the church and was elected as a deacon. Keith told me this story of what had happened when he was a boy. When he was young, he really admired the minister they had at the church, and he thought he'd like to become a minister himself someday. He mentioned that to his preacher on one occasion, and his minister laughed in his face because he thought it was just a funny joke. Keith left the church for many, many years, and it wasn't until he was married and had 2 teenage children that he finally decided to come back to the Lord. What's the moral of this story? Even the smallest deed done in the name of Christ can be big enough to be considered significant in the life of another person, young or old alike. So I'm not asking you, what big idea can you come up with? But I am asking you, what small deed are you actually going to do that may change a person's entire life? The third story also comes from Matthew. Matthew chapter 25, verses 31 through 40, where we read these words. When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, he will sit on his throne in heavenly glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats.